This is Hacking the Afterlife podcast with Jennifer Schaefer. Jennifer!
Hi, Richard.
I'm playing this tree.
I love that.
It's a tree from
You
the
are
flip
a
side.
you are a man of many talents, Richard.
Yes, indeedy. All right. Welcome to the podcast, everybody. We love that you're here. We appreciate you checking in with us to see what's going on the flip side.
Was
And
it your first or your
hacking.
last time?
Yes, for your first or your last time. You know, that's how it goes with podcasts. Somebody pointed out that we should have millions of viewers. We have thousands of viewers. But, not everybody wants to know what's going on the flip side.
Yeah, we just haven't really refined ourselves, in my opinion. We feel very fortunate to be doing this. We should be probably putting it on a bigger platform. But
Yes, we should. I know, and it's funny because George
do?
Noory, and let me say George Noory from Coast to Coast, I was on his show Beyond Belief. He asked about the podcast. I told him, and he turned to his staff and said, put this podcast on our network. And everybody looked at him like, no, we're not doing that. Anyway, doesn't matter. We have a very dedicated and lovely fan base.
We do. And I am the recipient of a lot of listeners that make appointments. And so because they've been listening, they already know about the process. They're already open. They're so fun.
That's so cool. And I must say, I'm in the midst of finishing up my most recent book. I won't tell you the title just yet. But the cool thing about it is I went back into all the old stuff that not you and I had done, but I had done with hypnotherapists and what I had filmed just to get excerpts. And it's shocking, that what people said 10 years ago while under hypnosis, it's identical to what we're hearing from the flip side on a daily basis. Identical. Word for word, sometimes.
That's amazing.
And then stuff that you and I hear here on the podcast. I know, I don't know if you remember, but we were talking to a librarian on the flip side, and he took the name 5 because he wanted to be non-denominational, literally binary. Anyway.
That is so great, though. That is
and he references, I'm filming somebody else talking about this stuff, somebody you've never met before, and they're accessing him on the flip side, and he's referencing us on the podcast. People on the other side talking about what we're doing here who could know, the people I'm talking to could have no possible awareness of it. Anyway.
It is pretty fascinating because what it has made me realize too is that even though once you cross over to the next room, it doesn't mean you're going to know everything. You might know everything about your past, present, and future, but it doesn't mean you're going to, I just took it for granted that they knew how to talk to us even. And we have learned that they're learning.
And this also goes to people who've done tons of research where they've talked to channelers, and the channelers come through and they say something, dramatic, like, well, this is the way things work. And they take that as sacrosanct. And I like to point out that the people they're channeling are only aware of all of their lifetimes. And so they may not have access to other journeys that other people that we've talked to have. And they give completely different insight into that. And so because they're so used to like, oh, I'm talking to somebody on Earth and I can pontificate. And, along come us and we ask questions, but wait a minute, what about this guy over here? He said something that's completely op. So the point being, we don't become omniscient on the flip side.
Correct.
But we can access information from people over there. So with that being said, our friend Lawana Anders, who passed away in 1996, I was talking about her today because when she passed, she had 2 cats in her room. And for about 40 minutes, these 2 cats in unison watched something move around the room. up in the air and then flying over there. And I watched the cats because they were like, like beacons. If only one cat had been there, I could have thought it was a fly or something. But both cats, both, like watching, and then all the clocks in her home stopped at exactly 4 o'clock on that day when she passed. All the clocks, you go around to the different rooms. It's like, oh, who turned off this clock at 4?
Well, at least it wasn't 4:20. That's probably what my son would have done.
Yes, a message for the flip side to partake.
Not
Luana?
that. Will do. Sorry about that. My son is still alive for everybody that's listening in. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I know, that's just comedy. Comedy for the flip side. Luana, you have the floor, my dear. Do you have anybody in your clipboard that wants to talk to us? Or do you want to talk to us?
Hold on. It's alive. Okay, so she's mentioning a scientist. She's mentioning 2 weeks ago, and she's mentioning you. So I don't know if you talked about a scientist. I don't know if you thought you were hearing in from a scientist.
Right, and this is why we love doing this, because Luana comes in with a little bit of a puzzle, and
Right.
and so this could be a scientist that I was referring to. Could have been a scientist.
Who's on the flip side.
Scientist who's on the flip side. And so now I'm going to hone in on what Luana's referring to, because she can do that with Jennifer. Put this person in a chair, Lou, across from Jennifer, and let's ask him what his first name is.
You had to see what they did when she tried to push somebody in the chair that's floating. That was actually kind of funny. Never a dull moment. Hold on. I don't know. I got the word George.
So you got the word George, and let's ask this fella. Is it a male we're looking at?
It's a male.
And George, is your name George? That's the question I'm going to ask you.
No.
No,
George.
has to do with somebody named George.
Hold on. You remember Curious George, right? Or the book Curious George?
Yeah. The guy with the monkey.
Right.
Guy with the yellow hat, you mean? That guy?
Yeah, but it has to do with monkeys, I believe. So now I'm like, are you talking about the monkeys, the band? Like, this is where we're going. So just let me work it out.
Sure, no, we're trying to figure this out. So, well, Luana, let's clarify. This is a scientist that was related to not like Charles Darwin, and not like somebody talking about the evolution of the species. But who is
And they just showed me the guy that is still alive, the string theory.
Michio Kaku?
Yes, excuse me. Thank you.
Michio Kaku, okay. And okay, so but let's just allow that this is a scientist who wants to talk about string theory. Is that correct?
And what's his first name? Do you know? Michio. Okay.
Michio, yeah.
Michio.
Or Mikio. I don't know if I think it's Michio Kaku.
Okay.
But so this person that stopped in our chair, Giordano Bruno?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Do you know who that is, Jennifer?
No, I have no idea.
Okay. All right.
I'm sorry.
This is what I love about Luana. She put somebody in the chair that's a scientist on the other side.
Giordano.
And she gave us a Giorgio or Giordano or George, something like that. George. Yeah. But his name is Giordano Bruno. Okay, he's an Italian. I mean, he was an Italian.
He still is.
He still is. All right. But I'm not going to tell Jennifer who this is until we get to the end. But let's now that we have Giordano here, this is very interesting. Giordano, let me ask you, why have you come forward? Do you want to clarify something
that you thought about or something?
I've written about him.
I don't know this.
You're not aware of it, but I've written about him.
Okay, so and something with dreaming or the dream state.
Very good. Okay, let's just clarify this. Now, Giordano, you had a near-death experience. Is that what happened to you?
Twice.
Twice. Okay, very good.
But they were like back to back, so maybe in the same I don't know if he was in the hospital and it happened twice. I'm not sure.
Okay, very good. And very good. Giordano, you were famous for your memory. You were somebody who could memorize like entire books, and you'd get up on stage and then just boom. People would say page, 47, and you'd know the paragraph. Was that a result of your DNA? Was that the way your mind was constructed, or was that as a result of, sorry?
Savant, both.
Savant, both. Okay.
Both. So
And
it was after. So he didn't have that until after his near-death experience.
okay, that's what I was asking. Because it felt like he had. So let's talk about your near-death
He was
experience.
smart, but he wasn't photographically smart. Like
I see. It wasn't so pronounced because it really changed his life. But I didn't know. I wasn't sure. I knew that you had a reputation for that. But
did he get in a bicycling accident? Like
so, well, let me just focus on this portion of him that I'm so aware of, which is, so what was it a bicycling? No, I don't think you were riding a bike, but was it some accident?
An accident. He showed me as a boy. Maybe his first one was as a boy.
It was a boy. Okay. Did you get hit in the head? What happened?
Come on. He says he like ran into a tree. I'm like, really? You ran into a tree? Come on.
Let's not judge it. Jennifer, you don't know what era we're talking about. You don't know when this guy lived.
I'll share with the class. It's black and white, so I know it's older.
So it's much older. Okay, and I'll tell you who this is in a minute.
I'm not thinking, but I'm thinking. What?
Just hold on to any thoughts about time and stuff like that. Let's just focus on his experience. You'll understand why I'm doing that in a minute.
Okay.
So Giordano, you ran into a tree. You were running, you ran into a tree, got knocked out. Is that when you had your out-of-body experience where you went around the universe? Or did that happen later?
Felt like it happened when I was around 15. That he went around the universe.
And just describe to Jennifer what you saw. So you had this near-death experience and you saw things. What did you see?
He's making fun of the fact that people see stars when they get hit in the head. But he said he went to the stars instead.
Okay, this is so mind-bending, Jennifer. You have no idea. But it's blowing my mind. So you saw the stars. Did you go outside of our galaxy, or were you just traipsing around our galaxy?
Because he doesn't know where he was.
But you could see.
But then okay, there's two.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I consciously didn't know where I was, but I had a knowing. Like everything felt familiar. Everything felt, and let me get it from, this is just what I'm feeling or interpreting.
Yeah.
He's so cute.
Describe him. What does he look like?
Well, he just has dark hair and these beautiful eyes. And I just don't, I know he didn't have much hair when he passed. That's what he also showed me.
Oh, I didn't know. I don't know.
I don't know. He just showed me unruly hair. So he had just, he had all his hair when he passed.
Okay.
I was like, I don't know.
I'm going to ask you something that's difficult to talk about, Giordano. And I want you, and I normally don't do this, but because this is so important, I'm going to ask you to show.
Somebody's death affected him a lot.
Say again?
Someone's passing affected him a lot. And was Jesus involved in any way?
No, hold on. I'm sorry. Are you saying somebody's passing before you affected you a lot? Like a lover, a friend, or something like that?
My lover who passed.
Okay, so when you were a younger. Okay, all right, but here's the thing. You know what I'm going to ask, Lou.
And was he a priest?
Luana, you know what I'm going to ask, and so is this okay for me to ask this question?
As long as I get the right interpretation, yeah.
So, Giordano, I want you to show Jennifer how you passed. What happened to you? Try not to be too, well, however you want to explain it.
Was he hanged for treason, or was he like, or guillotine? Fucking
All
A.
that.
Sorry. Now we are now not now we're not PG anymore because I use the F word. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
He just showed me being punished.
Punished. All right, let's call it that, please. Because what happened to him was so graphically horrible.
Okay.
It's hard to talk about.
Did I get that right though? The interpretation?
The interpretation is absolutely right. And it was the church. It was the church, the Vatican.
That's what he told me. He said the Vatican. That's why I'm like, was he a priest? But then, so that's why. And now he's like, no.
Yeah, that's why I'm clarifying.
But
It was.
what's so interesting though is the reason how he showed me. I just want to show the audience because I don't like to be shown graphic stuff either. And he showed me in a cartoon,
Oh, great.
black and white, like black and
And
white.
what did he show you?
Somebody being hanged, which to me, when I get shown that, doesn't mean he was hanged. It could have been killed or stoned or any of those, but it meant that he did something wrong. He did something wrong according to the church.
So, and we did, when we talked to Emmett Till last week, he very eloquently pointed out that he left his body before all the terrible things happened to him. So how about you, Giordano? What point did you leave your body?
He decided to stay and feel it.
Wow.
He's actually pretty funny. Hold on a second. No, he was taken right before. He goes, at that point of whatever happened, he goes, he goes, it was a lot easier to die than to live.
And okay, I don't want to dwell on that. I want to dwell.
Hold on. He's shown me either sepsis or some disease, like eating disease or something like that.
Yeah. Literally, they tied his tongue.
Fucking Nick. Sorry.
Listen, I don't want to get into the details of the stuff that they used to do at this time period when he was executed by the church. But tell Jennifer why this happened to you. Why did the Vatican call you a heretic, and why did they decide?
He'll be a saint later, he says.
Well, he is now. He's a saint in terms of science.
Yeah. Okay. In terms of science. Okay.
In terms of science, yeah. The church.
Well,
I don't think the church ever apologized for what they did to you.
So I just saw Galileo.
Galileo, very good. Galileo came. If I want to get this straight, he was around the time period, but later. But let me just make sure that's right.
That's what I received. It was like 180 years later.
So Galileo, of course, as famously recanted probably because of what happened to Giordano. They showed him the instruments of torture, Galileo. They said, here's what we're going to do to you. And he went, you know what? That whole thing about the earth going around the sun, I was kidding. He totally recanted.
3 people sacrificed.
And who are the other? Are you friends with Galileo, Giordano?
We hang out all the time.
And what's he like? Is he?
He just went like this. Like, you think that he knew there? He goes, times that by infinite.
Yeah. Okay, very good. And who else do you hang out with, or would we know who that is?
He goes, I like the musicians in the class. It's different.
Very good. And how did you reach out to?
He hangs around Bach.
He hangs out with Bach. Very good. And how did you reach out to Luana? Just describe the process.
Luana reached out to me.
And Lou, please clarify, why did you want us to talk about Giordano Bruno today?
He really is funny. He's like, well, I wrote her an email.
Okay.
That's sorry.
Well, Luana, what is it about Giordano Bruno?
Finish. You're not letting me
I'm
finish.
sorry. I know.
I questions and you don't let me even look into them.
That's my job.
Fired.
Go ahead.
Well, now I don't remember the question. But
Luana, why did you want Giordano to come forward today? What was the purpose of his visit?
To talk about your book.
Very good. The most recent one?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Again, audience, I know nothing about his most.
She doesn't know anything about my next book.
Talk during the week.
I don't. Yeah, we talk here.
Hey, can I just show us our text? I just got to show like text.
How much planning we go into our for our podcast. And
Well, I
Jennifer's showing a
why
screen that says, "Will I see
tomorrow?
you tomorrow?"
Yes.
And I forget, and she writes yes, and I go, "Wee, what time?" And she's like, 1:30.
30 and meditate.
And here
That's
we
it.
are. Here we
That's
are.
how much
That's
I've
it. That's
given.
as much planning as we do. But the point of that isn't that we're lazy, or I am a little lazy, but still, the point is not. It's that this is all spontaneous. And for those scientists out there who are tuning in, and I'm sure there aren't that many, but let's pretend that there's a few, or one. You want to tap them on the shoulder and say, hey, by the way, you should tune into this conversation that Jennifer Schaefer had with Giordano Bruno, who is considered to be the father of modern astronomy, the father of science. And he was executed for reporting. And I read the report and I realized he had an out-of-body experience and saw how the heavens worked and then reported it. And they killed him for it.
That's what he said. He goes, instead of getting stars in here, I went to the stars. It's so fascinating to me. I love it.
So Giordano, why didn't you recant? Why didn't you just say, you know what, I'm sorry, you're right, whatever. I'm wrong. Is it because you wouldn't have been as famous?
Wow. He said, I knew I would be sacrificed. And I'm like, did they tell you that when you went up there? And he said, no, I just had a knowing. But he showed me Jesus as well. I'm one person and think about all the stars in the universe. He goes, I asked him, like, was it worth it? And he goes, well, you're talking to me now.
And just to clarify, he was a Dominican friar. I just looked it up. And so he was in the church.
Okay. So I win.
Yeah, you win. Absolutely. And
my clients also that hear this podcast are like, you win.
Giordano, do you want to show Jennifer where your statue is? There's a statue of you. I don't know if Jennifer would know. Just look if you can show it to her or say the name of the city.
Is it right? It's in Rome, correct?
How do you know that?
He showed me the fountain.
That's correct. That is correct. Thank you, Giordano. The fountain, which you mean by the Trevi Fountain.
Yes, by the Trevi Fountain.
Fontana di Trevi. And there is a statue of Giordano Bruno. I've seen it many times. It's in a place called Campo de' Fiori. And it's this really wonderful statue that's at the end of the piazza with him a cloak over his head. And it's very imposing. And I always thought, well, who the heck is that? But, it's because he was a philosopher. He was a mathematician. He was a poet. He was a cosmological theorist. And he used to get on stage for the royal courts in France and do this trick of somebody would hold up a book that he had scanned, and then they'd say page, blah, 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 and he'd read. And so the church became aware of that because that sounded like occultism, because how else could he be knowing about magic? How could he know? Was that a trick? You see? But he also was a teacher. And he was teaching in class, and one of his students turned him in. That rat fink student turned him in as being a heretic. And that's when he was then pulled into Rome and tortured.
He said he gave him a bad grade.
Well, what do you think about what we're doing, Giordano? This is important for us to hear.
It's interesting. He says, you guys are eventually, with the help of others, bridge the gap between this and science. And he just showed me my brain. Like I always say, I'm like, if somebody couldn't they figure out what's going on in my brain? I mean, not figure out, for the lack thereof, like all the visions that I see, wouldn't that be cool to have that go straight to a projector? Like how fascinating would that be? Couldn't there be a way that we could do that?
Yeah, well, let's ask Giordano. What is a way? I have a theory on that, but what do you, Giordano? I'd rather ask you. How do we help people communicate the way that Jennifer is?
by not judging the communication or the source of the communication. He said, if I judged where I was going, he's showing me the stars and the planets. Which one? Oh. He said, I asked him what favorite, which I'm sure he put it into my mind. And he said, what is your favorite constellation or planets? And he said, the Pleiades, of course.
Why is that, Giordano? The way it looks, or because of the people who live there?
Home, as he called it home.
Home. We called it home. Very good. Well, let's talk. Can we talk about that a little bit?
I think it's the Subaru, right? The Subaru.
Yeah. The Subaru logo
I
is
don't know that this is just what he's showing me. So I asked him, like, are you sure? He
well,
goes, don't judge.
don't judge. Well, Subaru means the Pleiades in Japanese.
Okay, right.
So that's why they have that logo, the Seven Sisters. Well, let me ask you,
For the
Giordano.
audience, I do remember being told that a long time ago. So just for the audience, it's not
Okay,
like
that's very good.
like Subaru. It's
Well,
okay.
but,
I just give information where it's due. Go ahead.
so Giordano, do you want to share with us? Have you ever had a lifetime in the Pleiades?
He said no, but he was always fascinated by the people who lived there, the energies that lived there.
Let's ask Luana the same question. Luana, have you ever had a lifetime in the Pleiades or near there?
Yes. She says yes.
Okay. And anybody else that we know that might be in our immediate vicinity? Me or Jennifer?
Me.
Jennifer, what about me?
Hold on. Yeah. Yes. And well, did we all? Yes.
All right. We've never explored that. We're not going to explore it today. Question popped into my head. Jordan. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Sherry, Luana, and myself were very good friends there.
That's funny. All right. Let me ask you, Giordano, because you still have the floor. You still have the floor, my friend. Neil deGrasse Tyson is a huge fan of yours. He quotes you in the series that he took over from Carl Sagan. Somebody else we talked on the flip side, but he's adamant that there is no flip side. He's convinced that people like Carl Sagan don't exist anymore. Have you talked to Carl Sagan?
That's so funny. He said he hides from him, but he was kidding around.
Meaning,
he just went like this. He went behind like a big Roman, like whatever they're called, column, and he goes, "I hide from him."
Because he talks so much, or he's so interesting, or what?
No, because of what people used to believe. But hold on a second. Wow. So I asked him, like, why doesn't Neil believe? And he goes, he can't. And I'm like, okay. He goes, that will ruin his whole infrastructure of what he feels is out there.
His whole infrastructure. So almost like the construct that he has in his mind, and not that anyone should change it. I'm not saying or advocating that anyone should, but it makes him a very smart fellow, and he is a genius when it comes to astronomy. I can't, I'm not arguing about that.
The difference is it's only semantics.
It's
he believes in energy. So it could mean that he believes that that there is, that maybe we just got, like my son, for instance, said, he goes, how do you know if you're just not getting, like, there's a big channel of just all the information is put in there from everybody's thoughts, everybody's feelings. He goes, how do you know you're not just getting it from that? I'm like, well, that means I'm a freaking badass genius, because that means I can do it for each person and just grab out what it is that they have. I'm like, if I didn't see spirit, I physically see it. And the only reason why I believe that I see it is because I was too much of an asshole to believe it. So like, it's something that I can't ignore. I see it physically coming. I mean, I can't even see my hand at night when I put it up. It is so thick of energy and
Wow.
of faces moving around. Full apparitions coming in from my kitchen. That shit used to scare me. Now I know it's not going to hurt me. I just have to say, hey, I need to go to sleep, especially around a full moon because it's very, crazy. I'm like, I just need to go to sleep. They don't go away, but my mind shuts it off. So if your mind shuts it off, that's what you believe. No one's wrong in their belief structure or system. Whatever they believe in is right. But
Well, and going along those lines, but then the question would be, Giordano, if someone like Neil deGrasse Tyson spoke to you and in this fashion and asked you a question.
hold on. Sorry, you just showed me
Oh,
something
please. No.
really, really, really cool. He was the same way as Neil at first.
Say again?
He was the same way as Neil
Oh, okay. A skeptic.
at first. Oh, I love this. He goes, there was too much love to when I went to the stars and when the things that I saw, there was way too much love in the universe for me to think that that was just nothing, or for me to ignore that.
Wow.
When I came home.
I understand. We've heard it often. People
Right.
get on the flip side and they experience that unconditional love, and it's mind blowing, and everything becomes irrelevant when they experience that unconditional love. And so when Giordano came back from his near death experience or his journey in around the galaxy, experiencing that love, it allowed him to talk about it in a way, even though he lived in like the 16th century, allowed him to talk about it in a way that blew people's minds. Of course, they couldn't process it, and the church clearly couldn't process what he was saying.
Right.
And they had to, just like Joan of Arc, who was obviously clearly having conversations with somebody not on the planet, that became a challenge to their authority. So, what do you want to comment about that at all, Giordano, in terms of, that institution still exists, but so do you.
Well, he showed me in this crumbling, that institution is crumbling as well. And it doesn't need to crumble. It just needs to be all encompassing.
Needs to be all encompassing in terms of love. Is that what you mean?
Like, if they want money, just accept everybody. Stop pushing your like.
Yes, I understand, but we're letting Giordano, who has a bone to pick with the Vatican, let's not forget, he has a bone to pick, and so we're allowing him.
So he showed me a chess game. And he says everybody has been hurt by someone. And whether it's a church cloaked as a church or cloaked as a gangster or cloaked as, a scientist even, attempting to figure out what's wrong with you, like whatever it is, they can cloak themselves as something else, but it's a learned behavior before they get the cloak.
Say again, the love?
It's a learned behavior.
Oh, learned behavior.
Before they get into something that makes them do the things that they shouldn't do.
I see.
The things that they shouldn't believe in.
So, and that comes out of fear, a learned behavior on the planet. As a human, right. You have fear of annihilation, you have a fear of death, and all those fears, and of evil, fears of all these things that you create with your mind, and that causes you to behave really badly on the planet, including this gentleman, this scientist, this fellow had this incredible gift, and somebody decided they had to tongue tie him, right, burn him, and hang him at the stake.
And so he showed me, he said, he goes, every player was a chess piece. Someone had to tell on me in order for the information to get out because of what happened to me. Wow. That could have, if they would have just let me live, then they wouldn't have, that information wouldn't have shown me again. That information would still be with the church.
They'd still know. They'd still know. I understand.
Right. I know, but he's just saying they they did the universe a favor. So if you look at it like that, yeah, did they have to torture me? No, but every single person that tortured me ended up with something worse.
Well, in their life review, they had to experience all that firsthand. So, Giordano, let me ask you, you mentioned this book that I'm working on that Jennifer doesn't know about, but I have had conversations with people, let's just call it that, not on the planet, who are talking about this as an important book. However, there is the note of caution in a couple of instances where it's not that people aren't going to be prepared, but somebody likened it to pushing the butterfly out of the chrysalis too early, that there is a process. What do you think about? What's your opinion about that?
They'll find you when you're ready.
They'll find me when they're ready.
It will find you when you're ready. So I'm talking about, I believe he's speaking. Hold on. Like the listeners, they don't go to our podcast if they're not ready for it. They don't want anything to do with it.
Right. Turn it off. And that's the point that I was making. I've been making to these people on the flip side is people who don't want to hear this material will not hear it, cannot hear it. Just like Neil. Neil cannot hear what we're saying. He cannot hear it. And even hearing that Giordano Bruno still exists, he cannot believe it. He can't.
He just showed me. Brain going.
But it's hard to conceptualize. And then people are adamant about, well, you got to prove it. It's got to be scientific proof. And here we are talking to one of the first scientists who ever really was acknowledged. So is this a valid thing to argue or try to find proof, or is it just...
It's like defending the Bible. It's like defending a Republican. It's not going to work.
You mean metaphorically?
What's going to happen is metaphorically, but what's going to happen is that it's going to, all of the things that we're saying is building up for people to listen to, or when they're ready, they can listen to it. And so that is a good thing, he says. And you can't ignore it. It's going to poke you, or like, it's going
to nudge you just a little bit, And I have these arguments with people on Quora, scientists who come forward and they want to tell me, like, you're nutty, you're crazy. And I go, well, look at the footage. I'm not a scientist. Just look at the footage, look at the research, look at all that stuff. And then try as an experiment to talk to your loved one. See if you can. And when they respond, don't blame us. I see those hands up. That means Jennifer's got to go. Listen, let's thank Giordano Bruno for sure. Grazie tanto, amico.
I can't wait to tell my daughter, who's
the original astronomer. I mean, look him up. I just looked up his picture. He was quite handsome, actually.
He was
very handsome dude. He still is, Giordano.
He's like, he's making me blush a little bit. I like that. He's like, hang on.
Luana, we have to thank you for bringing such an unusual and interesting guest, and thank you for dinging my head when you said Giorgio or George, who that could be. Anyway, we love you, Jennifer. Thank you for your gifts, and we will catch you not next week.
I'm gonna yeah, no.
Yeah, no. Okay, 2 weeks?
Maybe. It could be a possibility. I'm in Sedona.
All right. Or I can dig up an old podcast and pretend like it's us speaking now, because it's the same information. Anyway, we love you. Safe travels, and we will catch you on the flip side.
Bye.
Love, love.
Love, love.
This has been Hacking the Afterlife podcast with Jennifer Schaefer. For more information, jenniferschaefer.com, martinizone.com, or richmartini.com. Hacking the Afterlife documentary is available on Gaia.com via Amazon Prime.